How do you sort out the so-called jargon from real-world practices that work? Do the members of your organization find some business or technology advice utterly confusing? Welcome to Real Talk with Sam Holcman. In this program, we set the record straight, and in terms that business people and technology people can understand. Now, here is your host, Sam Holcman.
Welcome to this edition of Real Talk. This is Sam Holcman. Thanks for tuning in today. And I'd like to bring to your attention an activity that we have engaged with clients for at least 20 years. And it's setting up what we refer to as the Operations Evaluation and Optimization Department. I know it's a little bit of a mouthful. Operations Evaluation and Optimization Department. And the reason we're bringing this broadcast to you today, and hopefully people will take a listen very carefully, is as I'm speaking to you today, there's a lot of discussion and a lot of activity in the United States with what is now referred to as DOGE, Department of Government Efficiencies. We're looking at this thing again for the last 20 years. And let me summarize. First, process, then technology, and then people. Let me repeat that sequence. First, process, then technology, then people. No matter how many people you address, the process, if it's not effective and efficient, is still going to be the issue. So I'm going to give you a real honest-to-goodness, not case study, but actual situation that our organization has gone through. We had a client that came to us and insisted that their requirement for our training was to pay after the course is completed. And we understand that. And we received a wonderful certified signed letter guaranteeing payment after our workshop was conducted for this particular organization. Let me summarize. It took almost 5 months for us to receive payment. 5 months to receive payment. And to give you an idea, the transaction was under $4,000 US. Using our process optimization and visualization approach, we estimated that this organization spent between $40,000 and $70,000 to process a $4,000 transaction. Because of the number of people, because of the number of handoffs, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what caused that? Was it the people? No, not the initial situation was people. It was the process. So what you need, or what is needed, is what we call process visualization. In other words, something that people can look at and say, here is the process for X. For example, in this case, it would be the process for paying accounts. And the technique we use, we call process visualization. It's a pretty simple chart that shows the process flow, the time between processes, what the process is, and the overall time to execute from initiation to close. With that in hand, you can start doing process optimization. Once you have process optimization, then you can look at the technology that supports that optimized process. And once you have that, then you can look at optimizing the human resources to execute that process. So what are we saying? Using a meat cleaver in an organization has an effectiveness at time zero. But from the example I just gave you, it really doesn't address the root cause, and that root cause is still there. So let's take a breath for a moment and think about operations evaluation and optimization. Operations evaluation and optimization is the goal. And that sequence is vital. First, you look at the process, and it has to be explicit. We suggest, once again, our process visualization techniques. Then you look at the technology supporting that, optimize that, and then look at the people resource, because then you can do a mapping. Optimization is always a goal. Resource waste is everywhere. Using these techniques, we can use a scalpel to optimize things very nicely. Let's reduce the chaos and still have not only a result that you can be proud of, but probably a result that is actually better than the approaches that are possibly being taken today. Full disclosure, we do not have involvement with the Department of Government Efficiencies. We do not know exactly how this is being done. We're just observing in our 4+ decades of doing consulting work in this particular area that perhaps there is a slightly different approach to this. So let me leave you with this. Sometimes adding gray-haired people to a team is vital and mandatory, in addition to the hormone-driven people that sometimes work on projects today. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Talk. Be sure to join your host, Sam Holcman, again for another edition of our program. We'll have more real topics of discussion then.